happy to be joined with my special guest this week, artist Christopher Burdett. Christopher, how are you tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I know as we're recording this, we're just over a month away from Pensacon, which it seems like, you know, on one hand, it seems like it takes forever to get here, but then next thing you know, it's here. And I think it's because it's like a month or so after the holidays, and everybody's so wrapped up with Christmas and Thanksgiving and whatnot that by the time the New Year rolls around, you're like, oh crap, Pensacon's in like 3 weeks.
Yeah. And to make things more crazy, I have a Kickstarter starting the Saturday of Pensacon.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. What? So, explain to everybody what your Kickstarter is about.
The Kickstarter is a book. It's actually 3 different books, but the main book is centered around a giant bazaar on a planet that I began creating about 21, 22 years ago. And I've been kind of playing with some of these characters for 20 years, and I finally, over the last 5 years, kind of put everything together. And it's the book's a combination, a collection of research documents and correspondence and stories and letters, and it's all gathered by this one character in the story to kind of tell the story of this grand bazaar. And there's different points of view, and some of them contradict each other, and some of them are just random wild stories, and some of them are, scientific documentations about the things in the bazaar. And the other 2 books that are going to go along with it in the Kickstarter are a coloring book of all of the line art versions of my finished art from the book, and then there's going to be a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition statistics book for all of the creatures that I've created, so you can actually take the bazaar into your D&D game.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a fun, crazy time. It's kind of weird that it's finally here after over 2 decades.
Well, I can imagine working on a project that long and seeing it, now finally becoming a reality has got to be a gratifying feeling. Yeah,
and it also has prompted me to go ahead and start on the rest of the books. I've already started on the next 2 books in the series. Yeah.
Very cool. So kind of backtracking a little bit, how was it? Well, for one, where did you grow up? And then what was it that inspired you to want to get into the crazy world of art?
Well, I'm from the Tampa Bay area in Florida. I grew up in Seminole, Florida. And at a very, very, very early age, I went to a movie with my parents. It was called Star Wars. Some of you may have heard of it. And it kind of just blew my mind. I was 3 years old seeing the original Star Wars in the theater. And that kind of, at that moment, when I watched the movie, it's like, I want to do that. Whatever that is, I want to make that. And then several years after that, I became aware of the Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual, the original one, and there was just a book of monsters and stories about them and information, and I never looked back. It was like with Dungeons and Dragons in one hand and Star Wars in the other, I just kind of went forward and started making monsters. And I've spent my life just designing and making monsters.
I can imagine the cantina scene had to be almost like a gold mine for you, just with all the cool characters and everything that you see when, Luke and Obi-Wan walk in. That's great.
That scene's been talked about as it was like a game changer in cinema. Like, nothing like that had been really done, and all these crazy monsters and all these aliens. But for me, I didn't know any different, so I saw that and I just assumed that's what things are like. Mm-hmm. Rooms full of crazy monsters and aliens, and I want to know about all of them.
Oh, I can imagine. So, no, I remember, I was born after the original trilogy came out, but I still remember clear as day watching Star Wars for the first time when I was 5 or 6 years old and just falling in love with it. And that's one of the big reasons, why I wanted to become a filmmaker was Star Wars. And much like you, it's like, whatever that is, I want to do it because it just looks so amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you decided that was what you wanted to do, how did you, because I know you went to Florida State University.
Yes.
Where was the turning point that got you into the, Because I know you started your career working in film and television. How did you get your foot in the door with that?
Well, growing up when I did, like when I went to school, the internet was just kind of getting its feet under it. I went to started college in 92 and I finished in 99. So it was a long, nice 7 years of college. But I didn't really know what my options were. In my head, there's comic books, and I learned pretty quickly there that I don't like to draw the same thing more than once. So sequential art was out the door. I just did not what I do. And then I assumed like video games. So it was like video games and comic books were my only art options. And I just, the idea of working in the movies and games was just movies and tabletop gaming just wasn't an option for me. And I went to FSU because I just assumed I needed to get the piece of paper and to get, I accomplished the task. So while I was getting my BFA, one summer, a low budget vampire movie was being shot here in Tallahassee. And I walked into the computer lab and there was a sign on the bulletin board. It's like, come work on this movie. And, special effects artists from Hollywood are coming to work on this low budget vampire movie, because the writer and director of the movie used to work out in LA, and he gave up Los Angeles life and he came to Tallahassee to teach, and he was a teacher, and he fell in love with Tallahassee, and he was like, I got to make a vampire movie. So he contacted Roger Corman, who he had done other movies with, and got a budget, and then he contacted an effects shop that he had done effects with. And I walked into the computer lab and saw this sign, and I thought to myself, that's exactly what I need to be doing. So I took the sign and I went home and I started making phone calls. And within like a day, I was on the phone with a makeup effects shop owner in Los Angeles, kind of like throwing my hat in the ring, going like, I want whatever you're doing here in Tallahassee, I need to be doing it too with you. I want, I'll do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whatever you need, I'm there. And I kind of just threw myself into it and learned everything that I could and showed him what I was doing in school, because I was doing a lot of puppetry and building a lot of puppets and weird monster masks. And I was just making weird things and doing a lot of illustration and just kind of trying to find my way in the fine arts department making monsters. Not, I wasn't getting a lot of support from the faculty, but I was, doing my thing. And the guy I worked with on the movie kind of just opened my eyes to the possibilities and taught me about materials and techniques and just how to do a lot more with a lot less and just kind of start making the things that I want to see. And I spent that summer working all night long on a movie set, and then getting up and going to class in the morning and the afternoons. So it was a crazy summer. And by the end of the summer, I had kind of cemented my role. And once my options for when I finally graduated school later that year, I could go out to LA and start working with him out there. And which is what I did. So I didn't even walk in graduation. I had my exit show with the art department, and once that was done, that was technically the conclusion of my time at FSU. So I immediately packed up and moved to LA right after my exit show.
No, and I think it says something, because a lot of people have a little bit of a misconception of trying to get your foot in the door with something like that. And you saying that you were still going to class and then you were working on, your outside projects, and sometimes even doing it, all night virtually. That's what you have to do to really get your foot in the door, is those who work their 9-to-5 job, or if they have class, they spend so much more of their extra time doing the extra legwork to try and get their foot in the door of what they want to do. And I think what you just said is a prime example of that. That's great.
Yeah, and I also, in my early days in LA, I spent a lot of time not getting paid and working for very little money, just trying to make the best of the situation, because, people think there's big money in film and TV, and while there is for some. For other projects, there's not. So it was kind of hand to mouth for a while there, or a lot of my time in LA.
Yeah, a lot of it's a labor of love.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So, kind of walk me through the process of what you did during your time working in film and TV, because I know you've worked on shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Firefly, doing makeup and creature effects. What is the process that you would go through in order to create something and bring it to life?
Well, the thing is to remember that it's always a team effort. There's always anywhere between 8 and 30 guys and women in the shop working together to do anything like this. And we all kind of like bounced around, but I had some pretty set duties and jobs that I was better at and that I liked to do. So typically we would receive the boss would receive a script from the week's episode of Angel or Buffy or Firefly, and they would go to meetings where they break down the episode and they talk about what they need, what effects are going to be needed, what creatures need to be created, and kind of like what needs to happen to make this episode. And then there's about a 2-week gap where we do all the concept work and we kind of figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and then we do it. So for about 10 days, we would go from just receiving the script to going to set with finished stuff. And I would be on the design team, so we would sometimes literally have an hour to completely design the brand new monster of the week for a show. And sometimes there would be notes of like, it needs to be orange with white eyes and horns. And we'd be like, okay, well, I guess that's something we're going to be doing. And other times it's just like, we just need a monster, just something, just a demon. And concept stuff would happen in an hour or a day or two. And then the sculptors would get on it, and I was not a sculptor, and they would get several days, and then the mold makers would work on it. And I was a horrible mold maker. And once they had all the molds built, they would run the foam or the silicone, and then it would be back in my hands where you, like if it's a foam latex mask or appliance or anything, that there's always going to be seams and edges, and you have to get rid of the seams and make sure that all the edges are nice and smooth so that when it's being applied, it looks like a real monster, and you don't see a line going down the middle of the face where the mold went together. And I was a painter, so I did a lot of painting of the appliances, of the suits, of the stuff. If there was something to be painted, I probably painted it. And for like Buffy, at the end of Buffy, with all of the Uber vamps and the backgrounds, all the masks and the makeups, I was painted dozens upon dozens upon dozens of them. I have photos with me in front of this whole huge rack of all these masks and makeups and stuff. And for like on Angel, where there was, I think it was season 4, there was the Beast, which was the big rocky devil creature, and I had to paint so many suits and makeups for that because I also went to set a lot. I was on set. I would wrangle usually the stunt guy or the actor in the suit, and we could only touch the actors from the neck down because union makeup artists had to touch them from the neck up. So they would be there to get the makeup on that I painted, and they would put the makeup on the actor, and then we would have to get them in the suit and get the gloves on them and get the boots on them and get everything done. And sometimes, depending on the makeup guy, he would want to try to blend the cowl of the headpiece into the suit, and sometimes they would just let us do it because they didn't care. They didn't want to do the work.
Yeah.
So I would always be at the beginning of the monster, and I would be with them at the end of the monster. And yeah, there would be crazy times where, especially on Angel, I would get up at around 4 a.m. to get everything together, to get it to set so that all of that day's makeup stuff was ready to go for the makeup department at like 5 or 6. And then I would be on set with them all day long till like midnight, 1 a.m., then go back to the shop and paint the next day's stuff, and then go to bed, and then get back up at like 4 or 5 and repeat. And it was, that would go on for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely something to be done in my youth. I would not be doing that now.
Well, and that's what I've heard from people who have worked in both film and TV, is that television just moves at such a quick pace. And it's insane to think that, you as well as, other team members would essentially create something from scratch at times in such a short time frame.
Oh yeah, we we had both the actor and the stuntman that was playing the Beast. One day, literally one shooting morning, they both tore apart their suits back to back right before lunch, and we basically spent our lunch break fixing giant tears that went right through the entire suits.
Oh, geez.
So there's three of us had about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, to completely, basically do the impossible, which we did somehow. A lot of glue and a lot of foam, and kind of just made it work and got the suits back on the guys. And of course, it was basically just a temporary fix. We had to do a lot of repair back at the shop later, basically just sew everything back together. That's because there's a spandex suit generally underneath all of the foam latex. So
right.
Someone had to do some heavy duty sewing to get it all back together. But they both tore like completely almost one arm off doing a big swinging punch. They both did the same maneuver, and they both tore their suits in the same way. But
what are the odds of that?
Fun times. Yeah, and it was literally like the first shooting day after the Christmas break one year, and it was pouring that day. It never rains in LA, but that day it was pouring down rain. So it was miserable. It was a miserable day. Luckily, some of the makeup team and some of the other PAs on production grabbed us lunch and basically put it aside for us, so that when the chaos was over and everyone was back on set and everyone was filming again, they brought us out some lunch and said, "You guys just sit here and chill. We got it. We'll cover you on set for about an hour."
That's good.
There was some good camaraderie there, but we always joke that there's about 50 jobs in LA and about 50,000 people that want them.
No, it's true.
It feels like that sometimes, yeah.
Well, and that lunch example is just a prime example of the camaraderie among film sets, whether it's a small short or a big budget. It's when you work with people for so many hours, even if it's for just a couple of days, you bond and almost become like a family in a way, and hopefully look after each other and look after each other's best interests. So the fact that someone went and grabbed you guys lunch is a good testament to that.
Being on set was some of my most fun times and fun memories when I was out in LA, because it was just sitting at the shop making stuff neat and fun, and that's what my skill set is. You could actually see the stuff come to life, and all the design work and the artistry and the skill and technique that went into making it. But being on set, you saw, the people talk about the magic. It's the magic of television and the movies, and you see what a set looks like with your eyes, but then you look at it through the camera or on TV, and it somehow magically transforms. And it was really fun and exciting. And that's the one thing I do miss, is kind of just being on set with a big team of people making something together that's somehow transcends all of your efforts and becomes something more. And also craft service was amazing. Luckily, everything that I ever worked on had amazing food.
A good food is key on a film set.
Oh, yeah.
A fed crew is a happy
morale.
crew.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, nothing helps with morale like being fed and having access to food, so no one gets cranky.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
Yeah,
You don't want a bunch of hangry PAs or cinematographers or anything like that, for sure.
Oh yeah, The chef on Angel made the best breakfast burritos I've ever eaten.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
good
because
quality
I
stuff.
would be there. Yeah, I'd be there at 5 or 6 in the morning, and I would have to get there, and then I would have like hours before I had to do anything. It's like I had to be there to get the stuff to the makeup artist, but then I can't leave because it LA traffic. By the time if I left, I would just have to immediately turn around and drive back because of traffic. So I would be there on set, and sometimes you try to nap in the makeup trailer, but most of the times it's like you're there first, and the chef's setting up, and you're like, breakfast burrito, and he's like, I got you, and it was amazing.
Now I want a breakfast burrito.
Oh yeah, and it was just it's just being it's always sometimes you just food tastes better on vacation and stuff, and it was kind of one of those things where if I probably had it right now it probably wouldn't be as good, but it's the context.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what was it that made you want to transition out of working in LA to doing what you do now, being an illustrator? I know you do a lot of stuff for tabletop gaming. So what was it that made you want to transition out of working in Los Angeles to doing what you currently do?
Working in Los Angeles made me want to transition out of working in Los Angeles.
That's very fair.
LA is great. I have a lot of friends out there still. I have some good memories, but I also have really bad memories. And LA's expensive, and it's going at about 1,000 miles an hour all the time, and traffic's horrible. And I did not like the aspect of my job where it's like you just never know when you're going to work next. And it's like when a show ends, you're unemployed. And even like the big shops, when the movie's over, your job's over, and maybe they'll have another job starting immediately, or it's overlapping that begins before the other one ends, or it's going to happen in a week or two. But just kind of being unemployed randomly just kind of got old after a while, and it just didn't really help with my creativity. And when you're always worried about where the next job's going to come, or where how you're going to buy your next meal, it just kind of takes the fun out of stuff. And I looked at a lot of different options, and there was some stable art positions back in Florida that came to my attention, and just it was a more approachable lifestyle. But I had already started making contacts with Wizards of the Coast and people in the gaming industry, and kind of like starting to feel my way into that industry, and kind of like seeing what they're doing. Because like I said earlier, it's like I didn't even think that they existed. Even though I played Dungeons and Dragons for years, I played Magic the Gathering for years, I loved games. For some reason there was a disconnect between me and the art. I always assumed, like a lot of other places, that people worked for the company and making the art. I didn't realize that there were so many freelance artists. Well, they're all freelance artists now. The days of teams of artists working at TSR are long gone, and I just realized that I could literally be anywhere in the world and start doing monster design and concept work and illustration for these games. Really kind of like changed my idea on like where I needed to live or where I could live. And my wife really wanted to go to nursing school, and that wasn't really going to happen in LA. And we wanted to buy a house, and that wasn't happening in LA. And coming back to Florida made a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. And we're close to family in Florida, and it just kind of, things really began to change once we moved back to Florida, because I almost immediately, once we got settled, I started working designing miniatures for Wizards of the Coast. It was a handful of months. It was really kind of like it all just kind of happened. The minute I left LA, the next door opened, and I haven't looked back, and it just kind of has been going from there.
That's awesome. No, and it's you pointing out not having to be in one specific place to do work. I mean, that's the benefit of technology today, is that you can design something for someone and just send it to them, whether it's through Dropbox, Google Drive. If you're doing, digital art, it's really cool, and it makes it much more convenient if there's somewhere specific you want to live.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you can live somewhere really cheap and and do really cool work, and you don't have to work in the you don't have to be in New York, you don't have to be in Chicago or Miami or L.A. to work on big projects. You can, thanks to the internet, you can just work anywhere.
Oh, for sure. As we start to wrap up here, I did, of course, we mentioned Pensacon at the beginning of the show, but I know you've been to Pensacon before, so why don't you talk with everyone about how you've enjoyed Pensacon and your upcoming appearance at it?
Pensacon is one of our favorite events every year. My wife comes to all of my conventions with me, and Pensacon is a uniquely special convention. I can't say enough good things. I mean, I've done San Diego Comic-Con. I do Gen Con every year. There's some smaller art events I do. We love these events, but Pensacon is really, really special. It's amazing how big it is of a show for the size of the show it is. It's a gigantic small convention, and it's just, yeah. I mean, I really have a lot of fun. It's like going there and being selling my artwork and stuff seems secondary to just the fun that I have at Pensacon, because we've like told all of our friends about Pensacon. So I have friends that are vendors at different conventions, and they're now vendors at Pensacon. And I've had other friends that are artists that have come in as guest artists, and we've met a ton of regional artists that we didn't even know were around. There was an artist in Tallahassee here that I didn't even know existed, but I met him at Pensacon, and it's just it's funny that way. So it's like it's friends and family convention for me, and it's great to be able to like hang out with celebrities, because they're just hanging out with everyone too. I mean, I really can't say enough good things about Pensacon, and I'm going to be bringing all of my usual stuff, my usual art that I have for all the games that I've worked on. So all my Star Wars games and Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. I'm going to have prints and art and playmats and mouse pads and all kinds of stuff. And I'm going to be doing a big sale at Pensacon, because with my book coming out later this year, I'm going to be moving away from doing a lot of client work, though I'm going to still do some, but I'm really going to be focusing on my book and my books and that artwork. So I'm going to be kind of making some deals on the stuff that I have, kind of hoping that it can send a lot of it home with me, with other people at Pensacon.
And I echo everything you said 100% about Pensacon. I'm born and raised in Pensacola, and seeing how it started, like the initial concept of it to what it is now, is really cool. And it's a true highlight, and kind of like what you mentioned, it's almost like a family reunion in a way, because there are people that I don't see any other time of the year but Pensacon, and I know I'm always going to run into them. So it's a really cool event. And it's also my understanding that you actually were a judge for the short film festival at one time.
It was it was either last year or the year before, and Steve will kill me that I don't remember, but yeah, I think it was 2 years ago. And yeah, that was great. Yeah, that was really, really fun. Actually, no, I was a judge the last 2 years. I was a judge last year and the year before. It just our role this last year was not as involved, because the year before the judges made an appearance, and we were there. We went to the theater and stuff, but last year it was done a little differently. So we judged ahead of time, and we didn't actually have to make an appearance.
Yeah, Steve's a good friend of mine, and I told him I was going to interview you, and he's like, "You got to ask him about judging the short film festival."
It was a blast. It's exciting to see the stuff that's being done. Yeah, and it was good stuff. The one year there was a piece, a film that really I was really moved by, and I was really thrilled to have been able to see it, and it did win the judges award. And it was kind of one of those things where I don't think I would have ever have encountered it if I hadn't been a judge. It would have slipped under my radar. I never would have crossed paths with it, and it was a really moving piece for me, and I meant a lot to me. And it was really kind of exciting to learn about this film and to then, find them on Facebook and follow them and, be able to see that they got some acknowledgement at Pensacon.
Yeah, Steve's done a phenomenal job with the Pensacon Short Film Festival, and there have been some really, really good films that have come through it, the last couple of years. And again, it goes back to the benefit of, modern technology is you can make a decent looking movie with an iPhone. As long as you've got good audio, you can definitely make it happen. And it's cool seeing, people who maybe like 20 or 30 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to make something like people make today. So attending the film festival has been a highlight, for the last couple of years. So it's really cool.
Definitely.
It's really cool. Well, so in closing, I did want to ask you, I got a couple more things for you. What type of advice would you give to someone who's either an aspiring artist or wants to do makeup effects in the film and TV industry?
Well, the best advice I ever got, and that was when I was still in LA, and I was talking to an artist that I really admired, and I was showing him my portfolio, and he would just flipping through the pages, and whenever he looked at a new piece, he'd kind of wince in pain and groan. So he's just like, ugh. And he just did this throughout my entire portfolio, and he closed it and he looked at me and said, "What do you want to do?" And I started telling him about, I want to be a digital painter. I want to do this, do that. And he motioned for me to be quiet. He's like, "Draw more." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You need to draw more." I'm like, "But what about the?" He's like, "Draw more. You just need to draw more." And he just wouldn't let it go. Whenever I said anything or asked him, he's like, "Draw more, draw more, draw more." And it was kind of a stinging, interaction in a review. And I kind of was like, I was try to be very professional and very thankful for that time. And I thanked him, and I walked away and I was just crushed. And then I just started thinking about it. I was like, I think I need to draw more. And that was the moment where I just basically, I started drawing more all the time, every day, no matter what. I had paper with me, pencils, pens, and if I was not actively doing something, I was drawing. And it changed everything. It really changed everything. That was the moment where I was always drawing and working my entire life, but I made that the priority of my waking life. And so when people ask me about what do you do to be a better artist, or what do you do to get to where you are, it's you draw more. You just have to keep working. It's making the effort, going through the motions, because you have a lot of bad art in you that you have to get out, and it's not going to get out unless you draw, you work. You have to create the bad art to get to the good art. And that's the advice I always give. Unfortunately, I've been away from LA in the makeup industry for a long time, and I have no idea how if I wanted to do that stuff again, where I would even start, because it's all changed. It's like I wouldn't probably even recognize the chemicals if I started to get back into stuff. It's like probably all the things I used to do, because they were all probably horribly carcinogenic, are all gone, and there's all new stuff now. But it just comes to art advice. It's always draw more.
No, that's phenomenal advice. And final question, do you have any website, social media, and you can plug your Kickstarter too so the listeners can follow you?
Well, the best place to find me, it's my full name, Christopher Burdett. It's .com or .blogspot. I mean, most of my activity is going on my blog right now, so you just go to my blog. It's christopherdett.blogspot.com. And I'm going to be talking about my Kickstarter there. We're on the cusp of getting the landing page and all that taken care of, so you just got to keep an eye on my blog. You can go to my website too, but that's just a selection of my artwork. All of my active stuff's happening either on my Facebook page, because I'm Christopher Burdett. There's several of us, but it should stand out which one I am, because my profile picture right now is the cover of my book. And I have an artist page too. It's Christopher Burdett Monsters on Facebook. You you get all the stuff there. But, it's either find me on Facebook or Instagram, same name, Christopher Burdett, or my blog. And all of the information about everything that's going on is all there. And I'm going to have at Pensacon, I'm going to have cards with all the information for the Kickstarter. And I'm going to, unless some horrific thing happens, I will actually have a copy of my finished book with me at Pensacon, because the book's done. Everything's done. I wanted to go into this Kickstarter with everything completed so we can immediately just go to the printing. I didn't want people waiting for me to finish anything. So I'm going to be handing off the book to my printer on the 10th, and it's going to get sent to China. And then 2 weeks later, I'll have the actual finished book back in my hand. It's a proof. So I should, knock on wood, barring any unexpected calamity, I will actually have my book with me at Pensacon. So that's what I'm really excited about that too, because I'll actually be able to show people the book and give them information for the Kickstarter.
Fantastic. Well, Christopher, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview, and I look forward to meeting you at Pensacon.
Yeah, it should be great. Yeah, I'm always looking forward to Pensacon. I always love seeing everyone there because it's so much fun. It's just a really fun time, because a lot of conventions feel like work, and it's just for me at Pensacon, it's super fun. I'm just hanging out, no stress.